Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week with an album review as we usually do on Saturdays, looking at an entire album, going track by track, exploring what each song does in isolation and is part of the larger whole. Today we're going to be looking at the artist Angel Dust, where the S is a dollar sign. The album is Brand New Day, which came out in 2023, and the first track of the song is the title track. I think I said Brand New Day. It's Brand New Soul. That's a phrase, man. Brand New Soul. I like it. I wonder where they're going to take this. Now, we have 13 songs here, barely breaking 29 minutes on this. It's a short album. A majority of these tracks are only in the 2-minute range. Some are not even a minute long. Judging off of the album art and the dollar sign in Angel Dust, I'm thinking we're getting some sort of maybe experimental electronic music, possibly. Electronic's definitely where my mind is at. 2-minute songs seem a bit short for that, though. We do have some featured artists on this album. We have Matt Carrickes, we have Lucy, we have Odd Man Out. These also sound like electronic artists to me. So I think that's where we're at. I'm going to try to gear myself for that. See what's going on. Now let's dive into Brand New Soul off of the Brand New Soul album. An infectious little, the bass and the drum right there. Smooth vocals too. Whistles. Oh, that's good. Very bluesy.
Jesteś piękny, kocham cię. Przyjedź do nas wkrótce. Jesteś piękny, kocham cię. Przyjedź do nas wkrótce. Jesteś piękny, kocham cię. Przyjedź do nas wkrótce.
I loved it.
What? I think we're going to have to back that up a second. I think it goes into that next track. But there is no way that I can let this go. We have to discuss what I just heard, what you all also probably just heard if you stuck around for the reaction part. How do you talk about this? There's definitely an electronic portion to this. The first 10 or 15 seconds feature a lot of samples. Some are just recordings of sounds. But then there's also some synth going on in the background. There is rhythmic usage of samples as well, rather than just crafting a sort of like an atmosphere of a real event. There's a musical portion to the sampling as well. And then the rock band kicks in. for a moment I was like, okay, this is a solid electronic intro track. We're slowly working our way into something more musical. Maybe it'll be on this track, maybe it'll be on the next track. I knew the song was only 2 minutes long, so like, what can you really do with 2 minutes? They certainly proved me with that. I don't know if they proved me right or proved me wrong, but what can you do with 2 minutes? They're like, bet, let me show you. And this was excellent. What a wild surprise. So that's like that just encompasses my reaction to this, where my expectations and head were at, what I thought I was getting, and then the subversion, and then the delicious musicness they delivered for that track. But what's going on here? What's the analysis side of this? Once the band kicks in, we have a groovy rock, blues, punk, pop thing. I don't really know where to place it yet. The vocals are ridiculously smooth. They definitely have a pop palatability to them. There is no rasp. It's just the delivery of it, the air support, the production on it, everything is just really smooth. I know that's not a great description because it's not really describing the cleanliness or the timbre of it. It's one of those things where if you get it, the word makes sense. But if you don't get it, it's not a descriptive word. But I don't really have any other way to describe it. The sound, it just easily enters the ear. It's very digestible across a lot of parameters. And like I said, some of it's the delivery, some of it's the support, some of it's probably even the harmonic element of it. The notes just being very palatable and consonant. Everything about it is just very easy to listen to. It is the exact opposite of abrasion. In fact, it almost seems to lack any abrasive component to it entirely. It just feels good to hear the vocals. This is paired with some interesting guitar lines. So we get some light syncopation from them. We get some interesting semi-riffs. It's linear at times, but it's also a riff, a loop, but it's also kind of vampy at other times too, just kind of hanging onto a chord and giving a rhythmic element to it. It kind of bounces around between a lot of rolls. It is certainly spinning a lot of dishes at the same time, spinning a lot of plates. Is that the phrase? It's doing a lot, and it's bouncing between all of these different rolls pretty rapidly. The bass, though, sick bass lines, super funky rhythms. The way that it plays alongside what the drummer is doing rhythmically is fantastic. The licks that the bass is playing are great to listen to. They're very pleasant. They kind of have a bit of a jazzy sensibility to it. I'd probably say it sits somewhere in the jazz fusion realm. And this quartet right here of these super smooth vocals, infectious groove coming from the bass and the drums, and the guitar just doing everything that it can to spice up this entire section in both jazzy and rocky ways it's remarkable. And maybe part of this is simply that it's not what I was expecting. And this is a very pleasant surprise, and that is certainly going to change my relationship to it. Whereas if you told me straight up, hey, we're going to give you some bluesy jazz fusion, I'd be like, okay, maybe this wouldn't have intrigued me as much because I would have been in a mindset for maybe something a little more complicated, and this might have been a little under that. Like I've said before, it's usually pretty good to go in as clear of a mind as possible because any expectations will color your experience with something. I've been on the wrong end of this many times in the past where I've expected one thing and got something lesser, and it's really tainted my experience. But there's also a case of this where I expect something and get something that I deem to be better subjectively, that really clicks with me, where I was expecting maybe something that I would more appreciate on an artistic side. It's a double-edged sword. Right now, though, it's working for the better. I was not expecting anything like this, and I'm so happy that we got it. Right from the start, I'm sold. I don't even care, man. The chorus, it could have went in a totally different direction. We could have had metal in here. We could have had I don't know, a hardcore breakdown or something. It could have turned into gent. I honestly don't care. This verse would have sold me on the band, and regardless of what they did elsewhere, I'd still be looking forward to the next track. When I talk about opening tracks absolutely capturing the attention of the audience, this is going to be a prime example for me. This is how you kick an album off. That verse is fantastic. Now we continue to explore these instruments doing this. The chorus and the bridge after the second verse, they go in their own direction, but generally what's happening is similar. The bass and the drums are still giving us this funky jazz fusion stuff. The guitar is still sort of all over the place. The vocals are still infectiously smooth. But the chorus and the bridge are also places for other instruments to shine. A lot of other instruments. There is a ton of auxiliary percussion that shows up on this track. I can't name all of it. I hope some of it comes back because I'd like to point them out specifically. I was really blown away by it, and honestly, I can't remember a single specific sound. I just remember there being a plethora of noises all over the place. There's also what I think is some synthesizer sounds. I mentioned some whistling, but towards the end of the whistling, it sounded like a synth. So either they digitized the whistling across the use of it, and I missed that gradual shift, or it was a synthesizer the whole time, and more of the digital edge was hidden beneath the mix of all the other instruments, and I missed it at the beginning. Regardless, we do have some synth in here. And it kind of plays around between 2 or 3 different textures. It's always some sort of atmospheric sound, although when it is either alongside the whistling or is the whistling, we do get a little bit of melodic idea out of that. We get some counterpoint through that too. And there's a lot of bouncing around here as well. It happens so quickly, but heavy use of panning, of instruments moving from one side to the other, of instruments being hard panned way off to one side or the other, even quick bounces back and forth. There is a second vocal set in here that is super digitized that ends up being bounced around rapidly. I think that was in the second chorus, or moving into the end of the track too, we heard more of that. There's also a really great bluesy guitar solo in here too, which I was kind of hoping for, given we had the bluesy, jazzy kind of element in our rhythm section. I was hoping the guitar would lean into that direction too if they decided to stick with something more linearly melodic, and they did. And I think it fits everything. Captures the rock feel. It has a very strong blues rock identity to it, capturing that bluesy harmonic identity with the distorted guitar and a little bit more drive to it. It has that jazz fusion feeling. Very bright and upbeat while bringing in a little bit of those darker tones harmonically. It's a great combination, and it kind of wraps up this entire idea of this poppy jazz fusion sound with this highly palatable melody alongside the jazzy rhythm section. In a lot of ways, this reminds me of what is that band's name? It's a 3-piece band, and they play funky jazz fusion stuff. Something Loops. I'm gonna have to look that up. It reminds me of a slightly less individually technical version of that band, where they find more technicality in layering than individual skill. I'm real mad I can't think of them. I listened to so much of their music when y'all had me discover them a few years back. It is absolutely fantastic. Merging like jazz fusion and pop music into one. And that's sort of what I get here, though this has a little bit more of a rock flair and some electronic layering too. It's a mix of a lot of worlds. And somehow they brought them all together in a very cohesive package. I think that's about it to talk about this specific track. Part of that is just because it's so short, but part of it is because there's really only 2 sections. We do have the bridge, which would be a third, but it's built off of a foundation of the chorus, which is already a section in the song. We just remove the vocals and add in the guitar solo. It's short, it's sweet, and it is densely layered. And I hope that the album keeps up with this. There's also, I suppose, the ending to talk about. I have no idea what to interpret of that. We entered into another language. We have another sample of spoken word. And then there was a different sample that came in at the very last second for like 2 syllables. And that's when I paused it and we didn't get to hear the rest of that. Honestly, I thought it was over. There was a bit of silence and I wanted to cut it off before we entered the next track. We'll back it up a couple seconds just in case it goes into the next track. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The ending just feels like it is. Much like the intro, it's very divorced from that jazz fusion middle, the core of the song. And I'm curious how that's all going to fit together across the album. Let's hit some lyrics. Alright, before we get into the lyrics, that group I was thinking of is Dirty Loops. Phenomenal. Phenomenal stuff. I absolutely recommend them. Getting into Brand New Soul. It doesn't really say a lot, which isn't a surprise, given how little time is actually spent in this song. Verse 1 says, Brand new soul. I've been washed clean with the blood of rock and roll. There is no one that I fear. Open your heart and sing it. So this person feels cleansed in the blood of rock and roll. That rock music makes them feel invincible. It makes them feel new. It has given them, maybe it's even given them a renewed lease on life, a new purpose. It says that they're lighter than a cloud, that they no longer bear any loads. It says that there's no weight on their shoulders. It says don't hold on to your pain. Just give it to me one more time now. And I think this is interesting because this is where I'm a little confused. Verse 2 also talks about don't hold your pain inside. Give it to me. I have a brand new soul. I think that's interesting. I don't understand the concept behind it necessarily as... Well, see, I'm kind of approaching it as not necessarily a character, but the vocalist. Telling their fans, put your weight on me, because I have no weights anymore. I've cleansed myself through rock. If you've taken the time to get a brand new soul, why would you go about tainting it? It's very altruistic. I think that's a cool purpose for a song, but I don't know if that's necessarily the right read for it. Verse 2 also says, brand new soul, bring back my blues. Maybe that's what it is. The feeling of being clean is awkward. They want that weight, they want that dirt, they want the blues again, the negative feeling. I don't know. I'm kind of confused by these lyrics, but that's all it is. That they've been cleansed, so put your pain on me. I want that blues back. And that's it. That's all the words on the entire song. There's a whole, like 12, not even. 11, 12, yeah. 12 lines in this. That's it. It's, I don't know. I don't get it. Infectious song. I'm a bit perplexed by these lyrics. So let's keep this train rolling then. Let's see if maybe the next song makes a little more sense to me. We have Love Slam coming up next.
I love this very aggressive music.
This is decidedly heavier. That's not jazz fusion. the sound of the strings alongside the crunch of the distortion. Two different tones rising and falling, replaced with a single third tone. I do like that. Did he say 2, 3, 4? That's 2 songs in a row then that we've counted beats. Now maybe, if this was more of the same, being that it's only 2 minutes long, I would have just allowed it to roll over. It would have been still less than 5 minutes in total of music. I could probably remember that pretty well. But this is not brand new soul. Not by a long shot. This is punk, maybe. There's a little bit of poppiness to it, and I think the chorus harmonically comes off a little more grungy. But it's very straightforward. All of the dense layering and interesting rhythmic devices of track 1 are missing, replaced with da 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 da. Just a very consistent rhythm, no syncopation to it. Simple riffs, single chord riffs. Our chorus does go through a bit more of a progression, but the verse is just one chord. Well, no. The verse is probably just one chord. We might have a second chord in the last 75% of it, because we do have a bit of melodic variation there. But at least as far as my ear is remembering, that could probably still be the same chord. And so simplified rhythm, simplified harmony, even simplified rhythm. We don't have lead guitar lines in here. We don't have linear melody writing. The vocals, which give us any sort of spotlit melodic idea, is a simple rhythmic idea as well. There's a little bit of melodic movement to it, of pitch changes, but not a lot. I'm not going to say that the first track was a incredibly dense masterpiece of layered composition. It still was a bit on the palatable, poppy side of things, and while there were layers, it certainly wasn't the most densest orchestral music out there. But this somehow even simplified that. I don't know where to take this. What should I expect on this album? I talk about albums kicking off strong, having a first track that absolutely tells you what the album's about, so that you can say, hey, this isn't for me, and chuck it out, or be ready for it. This is what I'm here for. Y'all are delivering it from the start. I'm excited about this. I don't know what to expect at this point. Are we going to get another And You Will Know Me by the Trail of the Dead, where every song is a wildly different idea, and it's just a smorgasbord of genres and styles? Or are we just going to jump back and forth? Or is this like a metal album that starts off with a string trio and then the rest of the album is metal? Do I get some really cool jazz fusion to kick off a pop hardcore album? I don't know. We're just going to have to continue through the album to figure it out, but I'll tell you right now I'm very confused. I don't know who this band is at this point in time. There is one consistent element here, though. That's the synthesizers. They showed up between the verses and did some interesting ideas. We had this rising and falling concept. I don't think it was arpeggiation, but we were rising in pitch, and then we'd come back down in the same pitches. On top of that da 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 kind of idea in the guitars and drums. Oh, we lost the bass. I haven't even talked about the bass. The bass is just doing what everyone else is doing. We lost the unique bass lines along the way, too. But we have two very distinct sounds. One thinner and one wider and fuzzier. And they both rose together, sort of mixed into the song. Not quite as powerful or volume-wise. Not as loud. But after they rise and fall, the left side cuts out, a new instrument is put in the right side, and it's louder. It cuts through all the noise. It's very dominant in the mix. It's the only time that we hear any synth line, but it does represent something different against the rest of the band, and that's sort of what the synth did on the first track as well. This is just... It's not even like super heavy either, but it's certainly comparatively heavier than the first track. And that's what it sounds like to me. It's just a heavy, more aggressive song. I do like the more melancholic vibes in the chorus. That drop from mostly stable to, really needing resolution. Really wanting to be to move towards a more stable chord. I think that works really well. That darkness that they present in the second half of the chorus and then really holding on to it, it's a good look. It sounds great, and I love the vocal chorus that we get on there too. That really large, really large harmonic stack in the vocals. It's just... There's not a lot of musicality going on, but as far as atmosphere goes, I think the chorus does a great job of sort of reducing more of the aggressive sound of the verse, softening up a little bit, and giving it more of a darker undertone. It adds a little bit of complexity to the song that I think it sorely needed, where the first track was rather consistent from start to finish, but was vibrant and layered. It didn't really need to have a lot of contrast on the whole, because it was creating a lot of contrast individually. This is a very singular, unified sound. It needs wider, larger looking contrast in order to fill out the 2 minutes. Honestly, it's not a lot of time, but to fill it out without becoming a bit stagnant. And so the chorus is a really nice way to expand on the sounds that we're already having in the verse, while also creating something a little bit more dynamic and contrasty. And then the song just ends. Not sure what to do with that either. Their endings or track transitions, I believe at this point, are interesting. And I'm looking forward to them, hoping that somewhere along the line it begins to make a little more sense to me. But right now it seems to be a way to move between tracks rather than having any purpose beyond that. Although 2 out of 13 songs, I don't think I have a lot of information to really come to a definitive conclusion yet. Let me dive into some lyrics on Love Slam. We'll see what's going on. Alright. This song is about being yourself. He says, they don't like it when I free my mind, when I let go of my past, when I rock out, when I jump into the crowd, when I close my eyes and let the signal fade and lose my mind. They don't like it when I be myself. That's the 2 verses. The chorus just says, but I love slam. Turn around and do it again. Now, is Love Slam an action? Or is he saying that he loves slam, like slam metal? But I love slam. I don't know. Whatever, though, he does it over and over. And this is how he connects with himself. This is how he frees his mind. This is how he loosens up at the end of the day. I don't know. That's it. That's all of the lyrics right there. That's the whole song. I don't know. I do think it's interesting, though, if this is maybe a one-off that I kind of leaned a little too hard into. He says they don't like it when I rock out, when I free my mind, when I be myself. And this whole time I was like, yeah, I don't know about this side of the band. I really like the other side. Oh, the irony of that. I don't know if that's what's really going on there, but if so, it's the irony is comical. All right, next track, Don't Stop. Okay. Oh, we have finger drums. Very small hand drums back there. Interesting harmonic element there, lots of tension. Yeah, lots of building into tension on that to release it immediately. I'm digging the layers on this. Girl, it's just getting good. Don't stop now. Girl, it's just getting good. Don't stop your love, girl, stop. Alright. What's going on with this album? This is wildly different than Love Slam, capturing some more of the rhythmic smoothness of the first track, but still moving in quite a different direction. I think at this point, I'm just going to assume this band has a lot of influences and is going to be creating music in a lot of styles. This one in particular is very rhythmic and groovy. We have a bunch of acoustic guitars and an electric bass alongside a smaller hand drum, all giving us this rhythmic groove at the bottom of the song. We're primarily focused on just one chord. Once again, we have some melodic movement on top of that with the vocals, but they are also very rhythmically groovy too, sort of sitting in that same area that the bass was in track 1, providing us rhythmic intensity alongside melodic infectiousness. This is very cool. I dig this. It's lower energy than Love Slam, but it still captures a lot of forward momentum and electricity despite the softer instrumentation here. The chorus, as I pointed out, has a lot of rest and then tension and then release back to the rest. I think that works really well, and it pairs well with what we heard in Love Slam, which sort of did something similar, playing around with intensity and tension. The one big change here happens towards the end of the track, though. We have a guitar solo in here with electric guitars. It's actually a duet between the two of them. It's fine. It's a bit of a small palette change, bringing in this new instrumentation, bringing in a little bit of melodic movement on top of everything else as far as instrumental work goes. But it doesn't really change much about the song. And it isn't a linear melody either, it's a loop. This does begin to incorporate some other ideas, though, a rising of intensity of layers and volume. We also have the first scream that comes into the, I don't know where that sample, I don't know what its purpose is. It just, I can't wait to see the lyrics, man. What I picked up had nothing to do with a terrified scream. The vibe of this song doesn't really indicate that that's going to be a thing either, so very confused about that. But we do have that peppered in here every once in a while. We do have a new rhythmic thing as we create a variation on the chorus, which has a very cool rhythmic shift in it that I absolutely loved. And then that was, we had a different variation of the chorus overlaid on top of that. And this creates the layering that we hear towards the end of the song. We still have the electric guitars in here. We have the screaming every once in a while. It's a good vibe. Aside from the scream sample, still not sure about that. But the layering all sounds great. I love the two vocal tracks and how they're dancing around each other rhythmically. It's just an infectious section of the song. And everything here, it's once again smooth. I don't think Love Slam is necessarily abrasive in any way, but it isn't as palatable, I think, as Brand New Soul or Don't Stop. And like I said, this is just more of a reminder of what I enjoyed about Angel Dust in the opening of this album that Love Slam didn't quite touch on. This, I think, finds a nice middle ground there, not quite as dynamic as Brand New Soul, but bringing in a lot of the palatability and infectious groove there. In fact, now that I think about the groove element and the more rigid application of rhythm in Love Slam, it makes me think that it is their lighter, poppier version of slam metal. And the song is just about really loving that genre. I really think that's what it's about now. Because musically, it's not slam metal, but it kind of is compositionally in ways. Definitely influenced by it. Here's something I haven't really touched on at all today. What are these songs saying? I haven't really touched on narrative or thematic resonance or anything like that. And honestly, I don't really have much of that. At least not so far. They're all very singular in focus. Brand New Soul is light and groovy. I think that matches really well with having a clean new soul where you have no weight put on you. Love Slam is, assuming that I'm right, just influenced by slam metal. I don't really think there's much resonance there other than it kind of being counterculture. The music does what it wants, as aggressive as it might be, and the song is about saying I'm going to do what I want even if that's not what you approve of. I mean, that sort of rebelliousness, I think, is baked into the aggression of the song. I don't know what Don't Stop is about lyrically yet, but musically it is once again very chill and light. It does introduce some bits of tension into it, and I'm not sure how to interpret the screams, but it just is light and dancey. I really like the grooves on this, and that's what stands out most to me. And I wonder, or actually I hypothesize this is what the album is going to be like. Songs that are very much, they tell you what they do on their surface, and they don't really deviate too much from that. In particular, the lengths of these songs don't really give much room for that. We have 4 songs that are going to be close to 3 minutes. A couple are just over, a couple are just under, but most of the songs are going to be, especially going forward, I mean, 1.5, 41, 1.5, 140, 139. 5 of the next 10 tracks are sub 2 minutes. So there's just not a lot of time to explore atmospheres. You really have to do what you're going to do on the surface and make it very clear and just run with that because you don't have time to really develop or put variation on it. It reminds me of what's that one? Grindcore. You just don't have a lot of time to your song. You have to be surface level because there's no room to there's no really there's not really room for nuance in the writing. And I don't think it's necessarily that they're writing short songs like, oh, this song's going to be 1:40. We got to fit something into that. It's just that they, as artists, are creating the music they want to create. And it just happens to be short. They like to put what they want to say right on the surface. At the beginning of the song, you immediately get the gist of what the track is going to be. There really isn't even a lot of room for surprise or variation. What you get at minute 1 is pretty much what you're getting at minute 2 and 3 if there is a third minute to the song. And it's not so much about trying to make the most of a short amount of time, but this is just the kind of music they like to make, and it happens to be shorter. But I think that the combination of the two works really well. I mean, even looking at something like Love Slam, actually all 3 of these tracks, Brand New Soul I probably could have used another minute of, but aside from that, I mean, if any of these songs went for 4.5, 5, 6 minutes, I don't think they have the support for that. They would have to introduce new ideas. They would have to use some variation and some contrast, more dynamic writing, new sections. What happens here is a really great pairing of length and intention. And it's one of those places where everything just happens to work really well, or maybe is intentionally working very well. And I don't know that it would really work if they had attempted to do something else. All right, lyrics, Don't Stop. All right, this song only has 8 lines. We have a verse and a chorus. What I thought was the chorus and originally described as the chorus is written as the verse here. What I think is interesting is that both the verse and the chorus are identical. Not that the verse and the chorus are the same, but that all the verses are the same and all the choruses are the same. In essence, it's almost as if we have 2 choruses that alternate. And in fact, I kind of hear them together. Musically, there's some difference, sure. But when I'm reading the lyrics, there's really not a lot of change going on as far as rhyme scheme or flow or even topic. It's all about the exact same thing. Could almost read it as just a single chorus that gets repeated over and over. The verse says, it's just getting good, don't stop now. Don't stop your love, girl, don't stop. The verse says, I can't stop, my love's red hot. Like a flame burning, like my fire. Give it all you got, can't no flame burn like my fire. And that's it. Basically saying that my love is intense and it never stops burning. I hope that yours is the same. I want you to have the same passion for me that I have for you. That's the whole song right there. It's very straightforward. The layering at the end is very cool, but it is literally just the verse and the chorus overlaid on top of each other with some slight variation to create these pockets where one can sort of have a little bit more emphasis than the other at times. It's actually a really smart variation on their part, and I like the way that they reimagine it to rhythmically work better. I also like this idea that the 2 ideas are working well together. If one represents their partner's passion and one represents their passion, they're overlapping and work beautifully together. I hope that represents the relationship being very strong and both people being passionate about each other. But it's all done from one person's perspective, so I feel like that's not a perfect read, but I really want to read it like that. All right, next track, called Racecar, all one word. Not a big fan of that. Racecar is definitely 2 words from where I'm around. from around where I'm from. But we do have a featured artist on this one, Lucy, spelled like the word loose with a Y at the end of it, rather than like Luci, the name Lucy. But anyways, cool little play on words there. This is one of the longer tracks, sitting at 3:10. It's wild to say that. 3:10 is usually a short track on the albums we check out. Let's dive into this, see what's going on. Another fake out like Brand New Soul, introducing me to electronic sounds and going in a drastic way. I'm sorry, what? It's kind of a bluesy chord progression on the bass and guitar earlier. Very fun bells here though. I don't think they're traditional bells though. I don't know what instrument that is. Definitely bright metallic being hit with some sort of mallet. Interesting harmonic instability on that. It wasn't exactly a bad sound. Retardondo, but do we have pitch shifting? Maybe? And reverb to carry it out. Yeah, every song is just going to be different. This was very interesting, actually. We had these metallic bell sounds. We had a digital saxophone-esque thing going on. We have the ratchet in here. And the ratchet, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's a stick with a block on the end of it. And there's probably some sort of flaps on the inside. And you use centripetal motion to rotate the block around the stick. And like I said, it hits these flaps. And when it goes really fast, it sounds like, I don't know what it sounds like. Like a really fast clapping. I think as a kid I used to call this like a clacker instrument, but it's called the ratchet. And oh, actually, it's kind of what it sounds like too, on like a ratchet tool. That clacking sound when you rotate it back. Yeah, I wonder if that's why it's called a ratchet, or if maybe the ratchet tool is named after the instrument. I don't know. Gotta look into that. But we heard that earlier too. Is that track? It wasn't 2. Was it? I think it was track 1, Brand New Soul. We heard it in there too. I don't think we've had too much auxiliary instrumentation that's been copied over. The synthesizer tones from track 1, we don't really hear them elsewhere. Track 3 had a couple. Oh, track 3 had the hand drums that I don't think we've heard since. Um, Track 2 had the more metallic-esque distorted guitars. Definitely not metal guitars, but going for that heavy sound. And here we have the bells and that weird saxophone thing. So yeah, most of the instruments are locked into one song. It's like they find the voice for a song, they explore it, and those instruments are off the table for the rest of the album, except the ratchet. It comes back here after being in track 1. I like the bells though. I don't know if they don't sound like a traditional glockenspiel to me, but they do sound like some sort of metal pitched thing. Doesn't necessarily need to be a bar or a vertical bell, but it does need to be metal. Hit with some sort of other hard instrument. To me, it kind of sounds like a mallet, but again, that's looking at the traditional side of making a sound like this. Really could be anything. It sounds great though. I like the melody, I like the tone of the instrument, it's very bright against everything else. But then there's like this saxophone-esque sound. It's definitely digital. I'm going to say it's a synthesizer of some sort, but it's been modified in ways that kind of give it a buzzy brassiness that I associate with the saxophone, and it is detuned in ways. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it's playing out of key. I think it's literally out of tune with other instruments. I think if we brought everything up just a little bit, because it sounds flat to me, if we brought everything up just a little bit in pitch, it would actually sound really good alongside everything else. So that makes me think that it's purposefully detuned rather than being out of, playing outside of the key, which would create its own type of tension. I'm not sure what to do with that instrument. That's interesting. There's a sound in here that I have no acoustic parallel for, and it's off to the left side. It kind of sounds like a bouncing kind of tone, but with like a compression, a grittiness to it, a lower earthy tone too. I don't know. Lots of really cool digital things going on in here that I think creates an interesting soundscape to listen to. This is all coming off of a rather electronic introduction to the song too, which reminds me of Brand New Soul, starting off in one way and then moving to another. There's also a random scream in here, and I'm curious if we'll hear any more harshes because it sounded pretty good. That was a wild harsh, not something I'd expect. Maybe it's Lucy doing it, which is why we don't hear it elsewhere, but if it is one of the core members of Angel Dust, that'll be interesting. Not something I would expect given the music they've given or played, although I think it would have worked really well somewhere in Love Slam. It's interesting that they used it here in something more palatable and electronic more so than in the metal-esque song. This song also plays around a lot with interesting rhythmic structure. I don't think we necessarily enter into odd time signatures or polyrhythms, but there are some wild accentuation patterns here where we might have two instruments accenting completely different beats, but the two instruments also have wildly different timbres. Maybe one's a bit brighter and thinner, one's a bit darker and wider. And so they're very separated. It's not like you can begin to hear it as a sort of a hocket in a sense, where the instruments kind of blend together and you get this dual rhythmic pattern. They're very separated in the mix. They're very separated timbre-wise. They sound like two wildly different instruments. And so I can't hear their rhythmic pulses as a single idea either. And that creates some interesting groove throughout here that is sometimes positive groove, where it makes you want to move to the music, and sometimes negative groove, where the rhythmic syncopation is kind of awkward and doesn't push the song forward in any way. It feels like the song's trying to fall apart at times. It's an interesting kind of duality of layering that we have here. towards the end of the song. There's also some really cool vocal layering that goes on in here. I appreciate that. We have some call and response at times. There is depth to this, and there is some really cool layering, but it also feels like half of the song is just vocals on top of a very simple drum beat with the bass playing along. And I like that as contrast. I don't know if I dig those sections in isolation. I think it works because they're typically portrayed with spoken word on top of it. I don't know if I would call it rap per se, but definitely spoken word, something less melodic and less singy. And sort of reducing the instrumentation down creates that hip hop feel without ever, I mean, I was going to say without creating, specifically a hip hop style of music, but we've listened to so much hip hop that has a lot of interesting instrumentation and musicality to it that I don't know if I can really say like a hip hop sound in the same way that metal has a sound or rock has a sound, just based off the type of instruments you would find in there. Hip hop is quite varied. I think when I typically think of hip hop, it tends to be production focus on vocals and maybe compositionally a little bit of stripping down instrumentation at times, depending on the artists themselves, what they kind of want to do. But I think bringing it down to just drums and bass is a very hip hop idea, and I think it works well with the move to spoken word or rapped vocals in those sections. It is also just nice contrast within the song itself, moving from these wildly dense, layered electronic sections to these more stripped down sections with the vocal part in it, but also, as with everything else, it's contrast on the album. It's another unique sound that we've heard within this opening four tracks. I mean, we're a third of the way through the album, and none of these songs I think I would ever confuse with another. They're all quite unique in doing their own thing. They all have their own sort of sonic identity to them, just based upon instrumentation alone. But I think composition too, you could begin to explore that area, that each song is composed uniquely against the rest as well. What is this song saying though? I got nothing on that once again. This one I just feel is more, I don't want to use the word wacky, but it's the first one that kind of comes to mind. There seems to be a little bit less cohesion in what this song is trying to do, which I think is interesting since I just talked about this, that there's just isn't a lot of time to explore multifaceted sounds within music given the times on these songs. And this track, it doesn't really have an identity in the same way that the other three do. We have a wildly almost like experimental electronic intro and then some really aggressive fast guitar work into a harsh vocal yell, sort of like a punk hardcore yell thing. And then that takes us to drum, bass, and vocals, and then more electronic layering, less experimental this time, but also beginning to introduce harmonic instability into it, and it ends up feeling a bit like a smorgasbord of ideas, almost a little bit of like collage music, a term that I've used kind of trying to take the visual interpretation of collage art, of bringing together a bunch of mediums into one work, and sort of the disparate feeling of that, where you can tell like this piece was cut out from a magazine, and this piece was hand drawn, and this is oil over here, and that's pastel, and this is, all sorts of different color combinations. It all feels very disjointed and it's a whole because of all these individual pieces. And I kind of see that here musically, the sonic representation of bringing together a bunch of disparate parts into something that's identity is the lack of identity. But unlike the others, which I think kind of stand out as an emotional forefront, an atmosphere that just makes sense off of those, this one, it's a lot of ideas and it's tough to figure out what they're all trying to do or say together. And I think you just got to be along for the ride for this track. Which is funny. I say that being along for the ride. It is the song called Racecar. Let me dive into some lyrics, see what's going on there. I'm seeing a pattern in these where the lyrics are rather shallow, not in not in depth, but in quantity. There's usually a verse and a chorus, sometimes a second verse, and that's it. In this case, though, we just have a verse and a chorus. Now, what's interesting is that hardcore yell at the beginning said, "Let's go," which is pretty common for a lot of punk adjacent stuff. You kind of shout that in silence before getting into your main riff. I mean, I can think of dozens of bands who have done that. It's just such a common thing to say. But it's actually a part of the sentence, "Let's go faster than a race car." I think this is pretty interesting, using a common call out to begin a sentence that doesn't use that same vocal style anymore. Anyways, let's go faster than a race car. My house is burning down in flames. He said, she said, there's no way. I'm innocent. They're all to blame. Verse 2, which is interesting because when verse 3 comes around, it's just 1 and 2 combined, and 1 leads into 2 already. So it's an interesting way to divide them up like this for some reason. Verse 2 says, dancing around a big star, life is good, I can't complain. One thing for sure, walking through that door, who's to blame? I'm gonna pay. So, verse 1 says that life is tumultuous. Things are just happening, it's so chaotic. It says we're going faster than a race car. My house is burning down. People are pointing fingers at me. I'm innocent though. That's what I'm saying, right? It says everyone else is to blame. He says life is good though. Walking through the door, but I'm going to pay because of who's to blame. So the whole idea here is that things were good at one time, but it's all spinning out of control right here. The chorus then says they're quick to point the finger, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And that's the whole song. Their life was good. Lots of things happened back to back, and now everyone's pointing the fingers at me. So let's go. Let's go might indicate, let's get out of here. Let's go might indicate, hey, come at me, bro. I mean, I think it's a general phrase that just kind of works for this situation. Okay, let's go. Like, there's a lot of ways you can put inflection on it to have a different meaning, and all of them kind of work for this. And I think that's interesting. I don't know if they were necessarily going for that or if they had a specific idea in mind. They've already brought up the idea of a race car, so driving, trying to get away from all this, that kind of makes sense too. But they also seem to put up a fight here. I'm innocent. Everyone else is to blame. They have a defense. So let's go, man. Right? It's interesting. Musically, I don't catch much of this. The aggression, the feeling upset, the feeling of false accusation, of fighting back against this, or of wanting to run. Like I said, musically it's all over the place. I was kind of hoping that lyrically I'd get a little bit of direction in that, and I do. I understand lyrically what the themes are. I can't pair that back to the music in any way. The music is just too chaotic, which may be a way of representing the chaos that led to the position we're in now. Maybe that's what they're going for on it. The next song is a short one, 1:30. We may just run that into track 6. Track 7's only 40 seconds long though, so I don't know where I'm going to stop next. I guess it just depends on when I decide I have something worthwhile to stop to talk about. Let's kick it with Space Jam. I hope this is about the film. And back to the energy of Love Slam, but this one a bit punkier. That delay works really well, creating a spacey vibe. That almost sounds like race cars. Yeah, dude, this is just good energy. little bit of bass focus. Okay. Ooh, kind of math rocky. I love that tone. Nice, warm, sort of indie guitar sounds. Even the drumming is very mathy with all of those fun syncopations on the snare. It's also a very bright drum production, something we haven't heard elsewhere. This vocalist is a chameleon too. Dude, just fits in so many different styles. Oh, there's those drums back. Alongside the kit this time though. Another interesting harmony on that guitar solo or duet. A little bit of like a reggae vibe just on the periphery. The heavy compression. And when it opens right now, yeah, it's going to sound nice to return to the full sound rather than the muffled one. Going on here? I mean, it's a cool section. Maybe that's all it needs. Well, I was gonna let it run into the next track, but it's a harsh stop. It ran right up to the end. Weird. Cause I figured the next track was 40 seconds. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll let it go over. But it doesn't. It runs up right to that final second and then just stops. The next track ends on or begins on silence. Weird stuff. Alright, I shouldn't say weird. Unexpected is probably the proper word for it. Weird would imply that it doesn't follow convention or is unusual. But it's not. We hear stuff like this all the time. It's just unexpected for me. Alright, we're going to do this backwards. I'm going to talk about Born to Run, and then we'll check out my thoughts on Space Jam. Born to Run it's an interesting track. It kind of feels like reggae. It's very laid back. I think the chord progression on the acoustic guitar is very close to a traditional reggae one, but with some slight variation to it. It doesn't quite fully lean into that sound, and honestly, it isn't until those hand drums come in that I really start to feel the reggae vibes, and that's when the harmonic content started to speak to me. I was like, oh, it's in there. It's not really on the surface, but you can kind of feel it. You just need a little bit more, signposting for it. Like, hey, this is definitely a reggae sound. You need other instruments to kind of, flip those flags in your brain, flip the switches so that you can start make those connections. I like that though. The drums, they're very bright. You know what? Let's not talk about the drums yet. Let's stick with the guitar because I almost forgot about this. The song kicks off with like this indie mathy guitar stuff, both in timbre and in melody, rhythmic writing, the composition itself. I found this to be really interesting. Once again, the band's like a chameleon. They can do whatever they want to do. And we've had electronic, we've had punk, we've had quasi metal, we've had jazz fusions, very proggy side of things. They're all over the place. They can honestly do whatever they want. And here they're like, yeah, let's throw on a little bit of math rock vibes. And the guitarist, he's got it too. Not the most intricate math rock I've ever heard, and honestly, I think calling it math rock is not quite accurate. It feels mathy, much like a lot of the other sounds in here. It's math-esque, much like, Love Slam was metal-esque. They definitely capture some of the vibes, but put it into their own style and work it within their own confines to create something that is their take on this sound. And the beginning of this feels very math rock. It feels very indie rock without kind of falling into the trappings of the stereotypes of those styles. I find that really interesting. But as soon as we kind of kick it down to chords on the guitar, we have the drums here, and that's when I noticed the drums are very bright and punchy. The guitars are small in comparison. I think this is a two-sided approach here, where the guitars are quieter, more compressed, more lo-fi than they have been elsewhere to capture that indie fuzz that they want for this track. But the drums are also punched up a bit too. I don't think we've heard the drums as prominent as this, and the snare itself is punchy and vibrant in a way that we certainly haven't heard elsewhere in this album. I find that to be interesting because it shows that not only do they understand the compositional side of all of these genres and understand it enough also to incorporate it into their style and find their form of it, but they also understand the production tricks that give some of these styles their iconic or stereotypical sounds. And they can manipulate both to find a variety of these genres and styles. And much like when the percussion came in, and I was like, oh, this is kind of reggae-ish. Yeah, that's also because it has a bit of a ska production to it, and ska is related to reggae, and just having that production with that instrument, with that timbre, allowed me to hear the harmonic qualities too. And it's little pieces of everything, honestly. At the end of the day, I think this is very angel dust. Not just the plethora of sounds across the whole album, but even looking at specific songs. Again, I can't really say that this is their metal song. It's just the closest thing they've done to metal within their style. And so everything sort of comes off as, what if Angel Dust did reggae? What if Angel Dust did punk? What if Angel Dust did, jazz fusion, prog rock? It's the inspirations are there, the influences are there, but they never go for the iterative side of things. They always try to do it in their constraints. And I'm not talking about within their chops. I'm not saying that they aren't proficient enough on their instruments to go all the way and do it. They just know what their sound is. If this was literally an album with all of these different styles on it, it would be heavily disjointed. And while each song is its own thing, each song also feels connected on the album. None of these songs really feel too far out of place. Although I will say that Space Jam, that takes it in a direction. That does feel a little out of place compared to everything else, and we'll get there in a second. But for the most part, they have a cohesiveness. Again, everything's kind of vague. It's vaguely cohesive, it's vaguely metal, vaguely rap. They take these elements and smash it together and make something very angel dust. And I think with all these vague elements, this is where things become more cohesive and solidified, is that they've crafted a language unto their own using bits and pieces of a bunch of other languages. And so the bits and pieces might feel awkward, but once you get into the gist of what Angel Dust does, that all feels cohesive, even track to track. I feel like I'm enamored by that more than anything else. This is an album I think I will revisit, especially given its short runtime. I don't know if I'll get anything out of a second time through, but I am enjoying myself through most of this and would like a casual run through on it. But I do think that that's what stands out to me most, is how this is just an Angel Dust album. They're forming their own language of bits and pieces of others. And that cohesiveness is wild. The fact that they're building their own sound out of bits and bobs of other sounds. Not too many bands can do that. And that's elevating Angel Dust for me. Getting back to Born to Ride, though, it's fairly straightforward for the first minute and a half or so. Maybe 2 minutes. We have a verse and a chorus. Some nice ideas throughout there. The bass, back to doing pedal toed stuff, but a little bit of movement on there too. Born to Run also had pedal tone. The bass gets to shine sometimes. Often, though, it seems not so much. This is more of an atmospheric track, though. Very chill and laid back. Drums, despite the higher intensity and frequency of the snare, also is a bit more laid back. It's just a chill, relaxed track overall. The ending is also chill and relaxed, but in a different way. We have a layering of a few different instruments, 2 different vocal styles. Oh, no, it's just the 2 vocal styles and a drum beat, isn't it? I think that's what it is. Very simple idea, though. Very electronic, kind of hip-hop, with the drum beat itself being a bit on the simpler side, but high groove. And the 2 vocals sort of dancing around each other, not just compositionally, but also production-wise. They're frequently moving all throughout the sound sphere. It's an interesting thing. If the idea is Born to Run and these people are running, this is them moving all over the place, literally in the mix itself. We'll check the lyrics on that and see if that's supposed to line up that way, but that's kind of what I was getting there too, although it could also be 2 people who are chasing each other, never quite in the same place at the same time, and consistently lose their ability to build any sort of social relationship with each other. I suppose that interpretation could also be accurate. Like I said, we'll get to it with the lyrics. Now, Space Jam, this is so single idea, constantly pushing forward. It knows what it wants. It goes out and gets it. It is a pretty straightforward punk track. One idea, I think there's one guitar riff on it, which we're looking at 90 seconds. So again, not a lot of time to build things on. Having one singular idea is okay for that kind of length. I just remembered that we've checked out Earth, where one single idea carries an entire, 10, 15, 20-minute song. I don't remember what was that, 30 minutes for Golden Faceted? So, I mean, you can certainly build as much of a song as you want based off one idea. But for me personally, 90 seconds is a good area that you would build one thing for. And even when the bridge comes up and it's just the bass is literally just playing what they've played the entire time, and it's just pedal tone for the most part. There's like 2 other notes in it that we get every once in a while. But it's heavy, it's aggressive, it's fast, it's blistering, it's forward momentum, it's aggressive. I think I said that already. There is this really cool spaceship sound in it, though. I think it's the chorus where we have the guitars, they do their thing, everything continues on, but except the second time through, it's like this on the outside, and then nothing for like another bar or two, and then and it's a really interesting sound. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but yeah, that's a thing that happens in that track. Going with the space vibe, there's also a heavy reverb on the word space in the chorus, and that ends up feeling very spacey too, very sci-fi esque. I also wrote down solo. I don't have much to say on it. I really don't know why I wrote it down. That was a blistering, fast paced, very metallic solo for a punky song. Again, I guess maybe I want to. Well, I didn't know at the time, but I'm going to use this as a springboard here. Just a little bit ago, I said that the band has their own constraints. Not necessarily because they lack chops to explore all of these, but because it helps them create a cohesive whole out of everything. I think that's a good showcasing that the guitarist absolutely could throw some shred down if they needed to. That if the might even indicate more technical playing, the math rock stuff. We haven't necessarily heard mathy modern, like Gen Z tapping or anything like that, but hearing them play like that with that sort of precision and speed, yeah, they obviously have a dedication to the craft. If they wanted to tap and couldn't, I'm sure they could learn if they wanted to incorporate that type of playing in a song. So I kind of apply this to everything. Most of these songs have been rather simple as far as individual parts go, but it's more about crafting the sound they want rather than being restricted by their skills. And I think that's a really good showcasing of it. If you go back and listen to the vocalist, they are an absolute chameleon. They have done so many different styles and sounds. Part of it might be production, but I think a lot of it is natural production too, the creation of these different vocal styles and an understanding of the way that words and rhythms and syllables are spoken in different styles. I mean, look at the highly rhythmic, groovy stuff that we heard on track one, and kind of compare that to the aggressive vocals of track two, or the really smooth, laid back, light, almost less caring and a bit more apathetic vocals of Born to Run. The vocalist just can do a lot. The bass, we've heard some really sick bass lines. A lot of the song knows pedal tones. They're pedal tones because that's what the song demands, more so than the bassist not being able to play anything more intricate. And so we do get these little spotlights into seeing the guitar shred, seeing the drummer do some cool stuff. The vocalist is just all over the place all the time. We've heard the bassist do some cool licks. So they're finding their voice through restriction, which is honestly one of the best ways to find creativity, is to just restrict yourself. And I think they do a great job of that, but it also helps put all these songs together in a way that makes sense across the album and doesn't feel like a sampler disc of like a bunch of different artists. And it ends up working for them, honestly. Not too many bands I think could pull this off, and they make it look so easy. Space Jam, like most of the other lyrics, has one idea. It says he can't live like a man, so he's never coming back to Earth. He's cast himself into the universe. He just wants to space jam. He asks a girl, hey, won't you be my girl? Take my hand. We're never going back to Earth. I'll be your space man. It's only a matter of time before the planets collide. And that's it. That's the whole song right here. The planets collide, I really think, is some sort of figurative thing, but I can't find any depth to explain that. He basically says that he doesn't want to live on Earth the way that people expect him to live, so he's going to go somewhere else. So the planets colliding, I thought, might have been him finding a new planet, and the culture clash, of trying to learn this new thing, of having a human, this alien on this new planet. I've always liked the idea of referring to humans as aliens on other planets because it's just not normally what we think of. Hey, they're an alien. You think of, the classic gray people or like tiny green Martians, stuff like that. The classics, or any of the modern interpretations too. Although Arrival has a really cool interpretation of them sort of being octopus-like. I thought that was pretty cool. Arrival's a fantastic film, though. I'm just gonna randomly recommend that. But the idea of humans being alien, I don't think most people think about that, but we totally would be on another planet. But yeah, maybe that's the planets colliding thing going on there. But it's not explained. It's like, hey, I'm going into space. You want to go to space with me? Also, the planets will collide soon. Like, dude, where'd that come from? That doesn't have anything to do with what's going on in the rest of the thing you're talking about. But he just says it, matter of factly. Born to Run has a lot of lyrics, but none of them unique. There's a lot of repetition in here. The chorus is what we actually start the song off on. It says, never win. Heart is in a young grave, born to run away, house is burning big flames. The second time on this album we've talked about a house burning. Verse 1 says, I'm so afraid, but I want to let you inside. And that's the whole song. He feels afraid to be vulnerable with someone, to let them inside. The house, I think, is also a metaphor for the inside of him. And that it's easier to run away from people who are getting close than to be vulnerable in front of them. And I think that's the entirety of the song here. I think it's interesting then the term never win. As if he wants to get close to people, but he can't. He either runs away or he lets them see who he is, which he describes as a house with big flames burning to the ground. So they either are afraid of him and they run away, or he just preemptively runs away and avoids the disgrace. He wants to let people in, though. He's just worried of what they'll see inside. So that's interesting. Space Jam, I think, kind of works with the high intensity. Let's just go. Let's just do it. Brain off. Don't think about consequences. Spaceman. Yeah, give me a punk song with that, I guess. But Born to Run is very chill and relaxed, and the song is about anxiety. It's about the terror of actually letting someone in, of being vulnerable, being yourself around people. And so running away, instead pushing people away, burning bridges so that you never have to expose yourself. That's not a chill, laid back song. But I groove to that track so hard. So, I don't know. That's an interesting division between their musical and lyrical themes. All right. Muck Motors. It's interesting. It says 40 seconds. Spotify says 41. I'm pulling this info straight from Spotify. Wonder what's with the second difference. Anyways, Muck Motors. Only 40 seconds. We'll run that into very aggressive and see where that takes us. So we have arpeggiation here. Okay. Very eclectic combination of sounds falling into that collage style. The bubbling is an interesting choice too. I wonder if the harsh stops is a Spotify thing, because that definitely should have rolled into this song. talking about riffy guitar ideas. I mean, that's catchy. Okay. Not expecting that slower tempo, but this feels great. Tempo rising. Is this accelerando? Yeah. That was metric mod right there. This part feels very rooted, and then the guitar section comes and just elevates it, drags it up. Alright, Muck Motors. I don't have a lot to add to that one. It's an interesting sonic collage. There's choir, there's arpeggiating guitars on very harshly articulated acoustic guitar, just really leaning into each of these strings as it picks them. It comes off as quite aggressive, interestingly, going into the song, very aggressive. There's bubbling, there's all sorts of other sounds, there's an interesting, like, 2-beat break of silence before coming back into more layers on the same section. I don't get that one. It feels like a lot of disparate parts thrown together, and it kind of works at being what it is. Maybe that's all it needs to be. Just a very interesting experiment of sound. But that takes us into very aggressive, and this is quite neat in that it pairs together a lot of things that we have. This is definitely at its heart a punk track. This falls in line with songs like Space Jam and Love Slam. That's very straightforward, aggressive, pretty much a consistent volume and intensity from start to finish. More vibrant and upbeat drum work. Very in-your-face, distorted guitars. We're not doing acoustic guitars anymore. We're not doing clean electrics. We've had too many songs of that. It's time to get in your face again. But compositionally, it kind of shares more in line with Born to Run and Brand New Soul with heavy syncopation. We aren't doing that very straightforward 4-on-the-floor or constant eighth notes like we saw in Love Slam and Born to Run. No, Space Jam. We're playing around with different lengths of notes. Very syncopated, very funky, very bouncy, very groovy throughout this entire song. The bass is throwing that down, the drummer's throwing it down, the guitarist is throwing it down. There's also a ton of varying amounts of energy on this track too. Even right there in what I believe is the chorus, as I mentioned, we sort of hang on to a single note for a while, and then we bring the energy up. The guitar gets brighter, it goes towards higher notes. We have this infectious groove. That's when it kind of clicked with me. Hey, dude, this song is very riff heavy and memorable riffs too. It was this specific riff that kind of brings all the energy up, and it's just a really nice call and response against the vocals, who kind of exist on that single chord, and then the guitar takes over where the vocals quit with this infectious melody. Yeah, dude, that whole chorus just absolutely works. I do think it's interesting though that this is following a trend for me. Yes, I love the jazzier, more syncopated, dancey stuff on this album. They tend to have more layers. It tends to be more, at least rhythmically complex, if not necessarily melodically complex. But there seems to be more technicality to the layering. I'll put it that way. Where each individual part is just a little more complex than some of the other tracks, which can be very straightforward compositionally, both like on the individual idea and just as a whole. Something like Love Slam is very straightforward of a song, and while I think it's a fine song, it's not something that typically speaks out to me. Whereas very aggressive, Born to Run, Brand New Soul, these songs absolutely speak to me. But the thing is, too, is that these songs just also happen to be the ones with the least amount of digital elements to them, barring the intro and outro of Brand New Soul. And I think I don't know if it's necessarily that I dislike them or if I just like the songs that happen to not have them. I don't know if it's coincidence or not, is what I'm pointing out here, but it is a pattern I'm picking out. The less electronic ideas there are, the less samples used, the less eclectic of a soundscape, or I suppose maybe even a sonic palette, if you will, for the song, the more receptive I've been to it. And it made me start to think about something. Do they use the samples and the interesting sounds, the bubbling and the phaser sounds and all the other weird things that they throw in from time to time? They're frequently on the less complex tracks. Do they use it to disguise the lack of complexity? Do they use it as a stand-in for that? Some songs they will write stuff that is compositionally complex. Other songs they will write that are atmospherically or texturally complex, where the writing itself is not quite as interesting, but they make up for that with having a bunch of instruments thrown in there. I don't know what the correlation is between this, but I do know that most of the songs that I enjoy tend to be denser and tend to have less electronic parts to them. I also typically find the electronic parts to be a little off-putting, maybe would be the word. I don't think that they're wrong. I don't think they're always out of place, although often I will say that they're very collagey too. I don't think a lot of them fit with the general sound that they've been crafting on this album. But I don't think it's wrong either, and I do find it to be interesting in a sort of experimental kind of way. But I do think it's an interesting pattern that I'm picking up, that whenever they are more heavily used in a song, those songs typically bounce off of me a little bit more. This song is primarily, yeah, I don't think it's exclusively. I think we heard like synths or samples once in this one, but it's primarily instruments being played. The same goes for Born to Run, the same goes for Brand New Soul. And those really stand out to me as, at least for me so far, the highlights of the album. So I'm curious if they've ever done an interview about that specific, very niche question that probably only I have ever asked about this album. Although I would love to find out that maybe I'm not the only one and it's even been asked to them and they've answered it, because I'm curious about it. Is it purely happenstance or is it part of their process? But very aggressive, I think, does a great job of bringing a bunch of stuff together. Like I mentioned, it is more aggressive. There are denser guitar ideas in here. It does have the layering of the songs I love, but it doesn't match their laid backness. It captures the energy and vibe of their punkier songs, and I think that this is a really great middle point to their writing. They tend to swing on a pendulum from more densely layered but acoustic tracks to more heavily focused on the core rock instruments and focusing on weight and heaviness of that, whether it's punk or metal. We'll probably hit a hard rock thing somewhere in here given their penchant to explore different sounds, but we swing between those two, layered and acoustic, less instruments but heavier and more aggressive. And I think this finally hits a point in the middle. We capture a little bit of that electronic, of that experimental sound of bringing a lot of instruments together, of varying timbres. We have a lot of density of layering in here too. There are some points that are a bit more straightforward, but there's a lot of sections in here with infectious grooves, infectious rhythms. That's the same thing with memorable melodies and strong riff writing. There's harmonic layering in here. It's all over the place. We had a bunch of rhythmic things going on at the end too. The cut to, I don't think it was halftime, but it was definitely much slower, and then the accelerando up, and then after we leveled that out, we still had a little jump up, probably another 5 or 8 BPM boost into that final section. So lots of playfulness there. Also, we had the metric mod somewhere in there too. The drums gave us some dotted eighth notes, I believe it was, which made it feel like we were speeding up and slowing down at the same time because it was part of the constant accelerando. But the dotted eighths actually gave us less hits per bar than we were getting with the full eighth notes. So, I mean, the whole ride at the end was really interesting, while still retaining a lot of the intensity and energy and distorted electric guitars of some of their more straightforward works. I think if I were to introduce Angel Dust to somebody, this might be the song on this album that I would pick. It feels like you get a little dash of everything, and that's a wild thing to say given how much Angel Dust has done on this album alone, much less, what they might have covered on other albums. They have a lot of paintbrushes and colors to choose from, and this captures a good majority of what we've heard so far on this album. Lyrics. Alright, there are no lyrics for Muck Motors, which I knew. Very aggressive is about the pain of being strung along in a relationship, I assume. The verse says very aggressive, cruel, a matter of fact, to give love, give love, then take it back. Total emotion, puppet on a string, give love back, take everything. The chorus kicks in here with a different vocalist, Matt Carrick's. I don't really remember hearing a different vocalist on this, so either I was paying attention to something else entirely, which is probably true because this is where the guitars really kicked in with their cool ideas. But it might also be that their timbres are kind of similar. But don't take my word on that. Apparently I didn't hear this vocalist at all, which I feel really bad, Matt, if you're watching this. That was not my intention. But the chorus comes in, throw my feelings on the ground, step on my heart again on your way out. So they feel like a puppet. They feel like they're being controlled and manipulated. They find it aggressive and cruel. That this relationship is very wishy-washy. He says, but I can't stop feeling every feeling. I like that. Adds a little bit of nuance to it. And then verse 4 says, the sound is offensive to me, very aggressive indeed. And I kind of chuckled at this because some of the songs in here, some of the sounds in this album kind of lean towards that. But it makes me think of other stuff I've listened to for the channel. The sound is offensive to me. I kind of want to take that line. Very aggressive indeed. I want to say that sometime in the future. I feel these words very much, not about this song in particular. But I think it's interesting that everything here is about feeling. And then here we've shifted over to hearing. I wonder what the what the purpose for that is. I mean, obviously, it could be the sounds of the stomping from the chorus. It could just be more of an artistic way to look at this. That the pain has a sound. The pain of being strung along, of being taken for granted, has a sound to it. Metaphorically. I don't know, though. As usual, I feel like the lyricist does a great job of putting an idea front and center, being very clear and deliberate about it, and then throwing in one or two lines that's like, if I squint, I can understand why that's there, but it's also kind of a random line, like the Space Jam one about the planets colliding. Like, yeah, I can kind of see it. I could probably come to a conclusion, but it's not quite as clear as everything else you've said, bro. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just one of those odd lines. I also mentioned that I think the transitions on Spotify are borked. I don't know if they're supposed to be this way, but some of the songs seem to have ends to them. Like very aggressive, as you can see. Silence 2 seconds early. That's a hard stop. But Muck Motor's into very aggressive should have been smooth and had about a half second of silence, which sounded like a track shift. But I have smooth movement turned on because it works on other albums. So I'm curious if the CD is this way or if this is a problem on Spotify's end. I think some of these songs are supposed to be fluidly, some of the tracks are supposed to be fluidly connecting, and they're not for some reason. Although knowing Angel Dust and some of the stuff we've heard today, it might also be intentional. I don't know. When it comes to bands like this, you can't know unless you ask or go outside of the core experience here of this, listening on Spotify. Let's dive into, we have a minute and a half for Sippin Lysol. That's a title. That seems rather short. I'm pretty sure we'll run that into 10, which is just shy of 3 minutes. Oh, we got a swirling sounds? Yeah, one chord, simple drums, one riff. Look at that high clangy idea. So we got that 3-3-2 pattern on the snare. Just noise. Okay. Oh, that was pretty fluid, so I'm gonna guess the other breaks were intentional? One, two, three, four, go. Another song with counting. No, we don't want that. I don't understand this album. I'm having fun with it though. And I think that's all that matters. Is that guitar slightly out of tune too? Everything in here is just slightly off harmonically. Everything. harmonics of this. It's kind of a warm, comfortable atmosphere. It's very relaxed. Love that drum work.
Hey man, I really like your music, your lyric. I love you man. Hey man, I really like your music, your lyric.
Alright. Sippin Lysol. Very straightforward, punky sound, kind of moving a little bit into metalcore at times. The halftime chorus is fantastic. Yeah, I'm on board. A little bit of like some harsh yells in there too. Very hardcore punk. Like I said, slightly going into metalcore maybe a little bit. I enjoy it. There's not a lot to talk about on it. It's very straightforward. The only thing I think that really stands out, other than just being such a vibe, dude, like I could headbang to that all day. It was just so good. But the end solo is it's just noise, which I mean, I guess eventually we would have had to enter into some noisy guitar work on here just because they seem to be throwing everything onto this album. Not my favorite thing here. It does show versatility, though. As I've mentioned, we've heard the guitar do pretty much everything else. Texture-based solo work. It's just another check mark for them. But I would have much preferred something melodic or even shreddy there rather than noise. While I do prefer melodic linear solos, I have a hierarchy, and noise it's not very high. Shredding is higher than that. But that's that. I mean that's it's 80 seconds, man. What do you want me to say about it? It's good stuff. I'm Not Ready is wild though. This is another one that's more prominently electronic, but I wound up enjoying it a bit more than some of the others. Most of the electronic instrumentation is standard-ish. They sound very keyboardy. There are some interesting textures that are applied throughout, but most of the melodic and harmonic ideas, anything that could be described as a riff or a loop, typically were accompanied with a sound that matched something more melodic that you could build music out of, with more of a, I guess you could say, a traditional-esque sound, more so than something textural, which we certainly had plenty of texture sounds in here too. But what I could focus on when I was paying attention to chord progressions and melodies, it was instruments that sounded more traditionally melodic to me. And so I could really hone in on that and feel the layering, the counterpoint, the harmonic writing in it. And it comes off as something very chill. The fact that it's accompanied with this chord-based acoustic guitar just kind of laying down the floor for all of it, I think aids in that as well. And it creates something that feels very warm and inviting. I quite enjoyed that. Here's the other side of the equation though. This song isn't just that, it's also dissonance. A lot of it. And I don't know where this stems from. I do know that pretty much every instrument in here is applying it. I understand that's where it comes from, but I don't know how it's achieved. At times it almost feels microtonal, which makes me think that we're probably dealing with out-of-tune instruments, but is every instrument out of tune? How many of the instruments are playing within the key? I don't know the answers to any of this. Everything sounds slightly out of tune to me. I don't think it's harmonic dissonance as much as it's tonality dissonance. It is a feeling that's awkward, though. And I think this is really interesting because my brain attempts to tune all of this up in my mind, sort of like an AI processing to fix it up on the fly while I'm listening to it. And I can hear a wonderful, cozy, beautiful song out of it. But if I pay attention directly to what's happening rather than what I'm interpreting, everything's just slightly off. And that's why I mentioned later on in the song, I was like, for everything being off, it's interestingly comfortable. It's inviting. Part of that, I think, is my brain just started to hear past it. I thought maybe I was acclimating to it, but I do think more or less I was adapting my interpretation of it on the fly. Because what I heard ended up being really beautiful, and when I paid attention, when I refocused my eyes on the music, yeah, it was anything but. It's just tense and uncanny, and you know what it is? I don't know why I said uncanny. I don't even think that's an accurate word to describe it, but it is uncanny valley. It is just on the cusp of being this beautiful, gorgeous stuff, but it isn't that. But it also isn't microtonality. It's not antagonistic dissonant sounds either. It kind of sits somewhere in the middle, and it's kind of worse off for that. I would much rather prefer something tonally dissonant or totally consonant. It's just a really awkward area to be in. And maybe that's the point of it. Maybe the song is about being in an awkward situation where you just don't have the confidence to project and be this strong version of yourself, your avatar. And instead you're kind of the shy, meek, production of that. Something just a hair bit awkward in this situation. If that's what they're going for, that's phenomenal. If not, that's still my read of it. It's one of those songs, though, that, once again, this kind of showcases the width of their skill set. I do think it's interesting, though, that we used a noisy guitar solo to move into this, where it continued to play with noisier sounds in general. And then there's the ending. This brings back vibes of the end of track 1, Brand New Soul, where like the last 30-40 seconds of it was just people talking. I think we even came back to the same voice that wrapped up the final 10 seconds of Brand New Soul. And we've muffled it even more this time. I don't know if that's to try to disguise that vocal timbre or if that's a narrative, artistic reason, a real purpose behind it. I don't know. Another song, though, that it ends just a hair earlier than I expect given the length of the song, and instead we have this transition. And once again, it's kind of an awkward transition. I don't understand it. We have 3 songs to go. I don't think I'm going to get the transitions on this track. And it's one of the big questions I think I would have for them if I ever talked to Angel Dust to be like, yo, what's with the transitions? Like your music, I get that. The variety of it, the incorporation of a lot of different styles, you interpreting those styles into your own framework. I may not always enjoy what you're doing, but I get it. But the transitions continue to flabbergast me. And I think it's the part that I really want to know about. There's definitely some questions I'd have for him, but this is like top priority. What's with the transitions? Let's hit some lyrics on these two. We may end up doing the last 3 in a bunch. 140, 139, 306. That's like 6 minutes. Nah, we'll do the 2 short ones. Break for analysis, and then do the final one by itself. So a song called Sippin' Lysol was probably destined to have some interesting lyrics. I don't know what's going on here, though. Sippin' on Lysol just sounds terrible. If it was like huffing Lysol, I'd be like, I don't know if that works, but at least I get the gist of it. But sipping on Lysol? The verse says, water is wet. Green is trees. Not trees are green. Green is trees. Death wanna come and take you away from me. Truth is harsh. Sex is fine. Let me tell you what I wanna do instead. I wanna turn the lights off and sip on Lysol. Oh, okay. The second verse. Big bad man with the money in his hand. Big idea and $1 million plan. He says, I know who you are, man. I don't even know who I am. So I'll turn off the lights and sip on Lysol. I don't know, dude. Sipping on Lysol doesn't sound like it'll have any positive, even momentary effect on you. You're not gonna get high, and it's definitely uh, chemical. It's gonna kill you. Sipping on it. I mean, unless we're using that for like a metaphor of slow death, doing things that will slowly kill you. Even then, though, like, what are you trying to say then? I don't know, man. I don't know, dude. These lyrics are wild. I think this is the first song so far that I have no read on at all. I don't know, dude. That's just. Anyone have any takes at this? What's your interpretation of this one? Because I'm at a total loss. I'm Not Ready is a song about not being ready to be separated from friends in general, I think. Both the idea of maybe a physical distance, maybe somebody moving or moving on from a relationship, a friendship, maybe it's just not suiting them anymore. Also, possibly talking about death. Verse 1 says, we don't want anyone to go. Nobody wants to see the big door swing from behind and hit you on the ass because I'm not ready. So I don't want to see you walk out the door. I'm not ready for that. It says, I could crawl. I really wish you wouldn't. And if you're going to give it just a little, I wish you'd give it a lot. But if you're thinking about being gone at all, don't do that. And if you gotta go, don't stay long and come on back. Again, just saying, I don't want you to leave my side, man. If you have to, I get it. Just, don't be long. Remember we're here. Come back for us. Verse 3 says, I can't break the river. I could turn it back. And if you're thinking about being gone, don't do that. We don't want you to do that. I'm not ready for you to do that. I don't know what this idea about breaking the river is. You can't break the river, but you could turn it back. And that kind of goes with the other one too. You could crawl, but I really wish you wouldn't. I don't know. Again, rogue lines that throw me off. I get the gist of everything else. The interlude just says, I can't break the river, but I could turn it back. I'm not ready, so don't do that. Bringing back bits and pieces from other verses. And verse 4 is just over and over and over. I'm not ready to go. I'm going to stay until I say so. The idea that I'm not ready for y'all to leave. I'm not ready for me to leave either. And again, this could be about death, really long, permanent being gone. But I think it's also about other things. It could just be about change in life in general. And one of the most visual and impactful ways that change is present in people's lives is the removal of the people around you. Having people move away or spend too much time at a new job or start to build a family and they hang out less, stuff like that. There's lots of ways that people's lives change, and you see people that used to spend a lot of time with you not spending as much. And he's just saying, I'm not ready for that change, no matter what it is. I'm not ready for me to change. I'm not ready for y'all to change. Just really wanting to be here where things are right now. I like that. It's a very vulnerable song that kind of says, an unspoken part out loud a little bit. I think generally when we have songs like this, it's usually some sort of death. Somebody really sick, and the song's like, I'm not ready for you to go, that kind of thing, right? But I like this idea. I think the way I'm taking it as change in general is how it speaks to me most. I don't think that there's any specific part of it that really screams that, but verses 2, if you have to go for it, but remember we're here, come back, I think is more about impermanent change. Well, change that could be permanent, but we still have control over. And the idea that, almost every song about, well, a song, art in general, films, stories, anytime somebody who wants to stay the way they are, the story is always that change is good. I mean, even going back to an old tale like Peter Pan, Neverland, the Lost Boys who don't grow up. The kids who go there end up going back home because you need to grow up. And even in Hook, the very loose adaptation of the classic Peter Pan story, was about Pan leaving and growing up, finding change, because that's what people need to do. They need to find growth in their own life. That's usually the moral. That growing up is good. That change is good for you. And this is the song that fights back against that. I think anytime something big happens in our lives, we tend to have this voice somewhere in there, and we push it down because we know it's not the right viewpoint to have on it. But it is a part of it. Just no one ever really talks about it. And I like that this song is here about someone who sees change happening all around him. People leaving, coming and going, growing up, or whatever the change might be. And I'm not ready for all this. I like things the way they are, and there's safety in that. I like that there's a song out there for this. All right. Fuel for the Fire. Waste of Space. Let's see what's going on with these two.
I like you, I love you, man.
Every day is fucking sunny, yeah. You ain't got anything that you can smile at. And just pretend.
Why are the drums right hands here? It feels so unbalanced.
Everybody got somebody to love. You ain't got the one that you've been
I don't like it.
dreaming of. Who's in your head? Who's in your head?
It really feels like my head's leaning to the side with this massive guitar tone over there.
Don't wanna tell no lie. Real fuel for the fire.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of a punky song to begin with, but this is a very traditional blues rock guitar solo. Sick stuff.
You get what you want, then you settle for second best. The joke has never been as funny as now. You ain't got no tears left to cry out of your head. Out of your head. Getting close to the end. Now I wanna pretend. Don't wanna tell no lie. Real feel for the fire.
A little bit of slower country fried rock ending there. Very momentary shift though. And back to the production of every other song. Why? The vocals being fuzzier and more distorted than the guitar is kind of cracking me up. Is that a triangle? Did they put a triangle in their album? I really hope so. Oh, what is that? love that. Oh, jeez. Are they using forming shifting on harsh vocals to create dips? So that song featured Odd Man Out. I'm going to assume they did the harsh vocals. We've heard harsh vocals elsewhere on the album, but those sounded different. Actually, what cracked me up is it reminded me of Misha Mansour's harsh vocals. He is one of the guitarists for Periphery, and a long while ago, they trolled their fans with an April 1st song that was comically terrible, and honestly, I kind of rate it as one of my favorite songs from Periphery. But I'm like 90% certain Misha did the vocals on it because it does not sound like Spencer, their usual vocalist, doing them. And for whatever reason, like I haven't thought about that song in forever. I don't remember what it was called. I'm gonna have to look it up after this reaction though, because it's been so long since I heard it. And that was the first thing I thought of was an April Fool's song release. But I also genuinely think the vocals are very comical in here too. Like, this is not a song that you would typically hear harsh vocals with, and just unabashedly putting them everywhere in here, even with the da 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 at the end, because at the beginning of the song, it's the distorted clean vocals, but at the end it's paired with the harshes. But there's also a harsh vocal coming in around, I don't know, 50 seconds into the song, and it's like, damn, it's just these little dips coming back up. But I think it's using formant shifting or pitch shifting on the vocals in order to get the dip rather than asking the vocalist to change the pitch of their harsh vocal. And it sounded so weird, but it kind of worked. Everything about it just feels very comical to me. And part of that's probably going to be my weird sense of musical humor to begin with. But I think the other part is there's a lot of odd choices in here that are so absurd. And y'all know me with absurd musical combinations, especially vocals. I don't know what it is about vocal deliveries that will send me, but most of the times that I chuckle in a song that isn't explicitly comedic, it's because the vocalist did something unexpected. Not even the words they're saying, although sometimes it is the words they're saying, but the sounds that they make will just send me flying. And this is one of those cases. I love it. It is so fun. Now, other than that, I don't have a lot to add to these tracks. We hear a little bit more dynamic writing, especially when it comes to tempo. For whatever reason, here in the back half of the album, they are big fans of massive tempo shifts. I think it's really interesting that at the beginning of the song, or the beginning of the album, I was more focused on shifting atmospheres and instrumentation. Here at the end, it's a lot of temporal stuff going on. It's lots of retardandos, which is gradual slowing down, accelerandos, which is gradual speeding up, and then just harsh cuts to slower or faster tempos. It's kind of all over the place, and we got 3 in this track, I think, maybe just 2. I do like the texture layering on Waste of Space. Oh, Fuel for the Fire also had 1, so maybe that's where I got the 3 from. The songs might have run together a little bit for me. Waste of Space does have some cool texture layering. That da-da-da-da pairs a distorted guitar with an even more distorted vocal, which I thought was fantastic. Usually it's the inverse where the guitar is overly distorted and the vocals are cleaner. I thought that worked really well. This is just a really catchy track. Fuel for the Fire is more straightforward. I think it's a fine jam, very very good headbanging material, but this is dancey stuff right here, and I'm a big fan of that. The altering of the cleans and harshes, the layering that we got at the end of the track, I thought all of that worked really well. I have no idea what these songs are about. Both of them kind of come across as more energetic. Maybe aggressive would be a word, but I don't know if that necessarily fits. It's I don't know how we're gonna end this album, but these two songs I think really they bring the energy up for me. I don't know what my favorite track would be of this so far. I mean, Brand New Soul is still a phenomenal way to start the album off, but Waste of Space might be trying to take that slot. That's just some fun stuff there. But I do think ultimately this is a nice way to sort of lighten the mood a little bit. Two shorter songs, very concise, hyper focused, and this one having the harsh vocals out of nowhere. It's bringing the energy up, that's for sure. What we do with our final track, we'll see in a second, but they are bringing the energy up to hit a finale. We're kind of alternating, right? More of a higher energy one, more of a more layered, densely written one. Here we just had two back-to-back, really straightforward, aggressive bangers. So they're ramping up towards something. In the tape deck is one of the longer ones. It is one of the tracks that's longer than 3 minutes. That's gonna wrap us up. What are they gonna do with that? We'll find out. Let's hit some lyrics. Fuel for the Fire may have the most amount of unique stanzas, although each stanza is 3 lines long, but we do have 6 distinct verses in here. Interestingly, the chorus, it's labeled as a verse, but it does get repeated. It says we're getting close to the end. I think that is a wonderful line for track 11 out of 13. But it's talking about life. It says, I don't want to pretend, so I don't want to tell no lie. We are all fuel for the fire. Okay, that's a bit of a heavier line. We're just resources to consume. Okay, a little bit of social commentary there, something we've kind of maybe hinted at a couple of times, but not really focused too much on. This has been a lighter album. To hit with some social commentary here is interesting. But he says, every day is sunny out. If you ain't got nothing that you can smile about, then just pretend. I like that line. Fake it to make it. If you want to be happy, pretend to be happy. Maybe you'll get there eventually. It says everything is wonderful. If you can't get what you want, then settle for second best. I love that line too. Second best is usually still pretty good, right? So, I mean, it's not like you're settling for last. Not everyone is going to be the best of the best of the best. There's only one slot for that. Find something that'll make you happy with what you can obtain. Otherwise, you're going to be filled with unhappiness. That's generally what the rest of the stanzas are about too. I wanted to point those two out in particular because I really like their examples. But the general idea here is that you don't have a lot of time on this planet. Whatever the fuel for the fire is supposed to represent, the idea is we're all close to the end. Why are you making your life miserable? Why are you trying to strive for stuff that's breaking your back that you're never going to get? Second best is fine. Because at the end of the day, you're just fuel anyways. Now what I think is interesting too is the idea of decomposition. I don't think this is necessarily where they're going, but our bodies do provide food. Maybe not necessarily fuel would be the right word for it, but we do give back to the planet. I think that's interesting. I don't know if that's where they were going for it. Probably something a bit more pessimistic, but still, however you were feeling when you were alive won't matter when you're not. So might as well make your alive time good. I can get behind that message. Waste of Space is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a song about someone who feels they are a waste of space. There's a verse, I'm a waste of space, nothing good behind my face. No purpose, no place. That's it. That is stated 3 times out of 5 stanzas. The other is pissed off, looking nice, put in the pile, fits just right, putting up zilch, socking up light, no purpose here. The idea that they're basically not doing anything. He says putting out zilch. I'm not adding anything of purpose to this world. I'm just socking up light. Now, I don't know that phrase of socking up, but I'm going to assume that he's absorbing something. So he's taking something without giving something. That's the gist there. Says, I stay home with nothing to do. Take your pills, I will do. And I guess that's somebody else saying take your pills, and he says, I will. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole song. I'm not too keen about it lyrically. I think it's fine. Not I don't know. It just there's been some lyrics in here that even if they didn't click with me about what they were saying, I still thought they were well done. This one, I have no connection to this, completely apathetic to these lyrics. But the music's fire. So, maybe that's good enough for that one. Let's take this video home. 2.5 hours isn't that bad for a half-hour album. So I've had a lot to talk about on this one, I suppose. In the tape deck, I have rewound this back to 0 seconds since it did go over a little bit. Let's dive in, see what's going on.
It's me, Steve.
What? Hi, Steve. There's that synth whistling again from track 1. That's the ratchet over there on the right. That gear cranking sounds. It's very dissonant though. This is okay, but even this guitar, it's just... Again, it's like slightly out of tune. Not enough to be dissonant, but enough to be noticeable. I really want to like this. Yeah, cool little bass lick. Oh, that bass lick is actually from another instrument in this song. That line's been passed around to at least 3 instruments now.
Time to take me home. I'm your passenger. I don't know where you are, but I know.
I like the raw vocals in the background.
I'm your a passenger. I don't know where you were.
I'm glad this is here. I'm glad that's there. Yes, okay. So I was trying to figure out how to explain this again, because this is the same phenomenon we saw earlier in, was it I'm Not Ready? Or was it, I think it was I'm Not Ready, where I had mentioned that everything was slightly out of tune, but that I could hear something very nice and palatable and warm within that. I heard the same thing here. And the only thing I could land on was that the chord progression and the melody were creating a warm emotional feeling and a strong melody that I was really attaching to on an emotional level. There are a couple other ornamental things that I think were adding to this, but were not necessary. They weren't core components to why I was resonating with this despite the dissonance. And there at the end, they isolated the two: chord progression, vocal melody. And that sounds beautiful. I really love the two of those. It is a simple idea at the end of the day, sure, but the emotional elements of the chord progression and the delivery of the vocals, all of it being a bit lower energy, calmer, chiller, but still having a bit of this apprehension, this negativity to it. A little bit of darkness looming around it. I like that. It works. They pair it with all of these other wild things, though. A lot of dissonance, a lot of sharp tones. Not all of it works for me, but I can kind of peer through it and get to that core element and enjoy what's going on here. And so I am sort of split minds on this one, where I like the main part of this track. I think it's cozy. I think it's warm. I enjoyed listening to it. I think it's a great vibe to wrap the song up on. I don't like the song itself, because most of the rest of it is slightly out of tune. Again, I don't, this is the third song, which honestly 3 out of 10 is not bad. Not a whole album of it, but I don't get it. I've brought this up in some other bands as well, some other songs where tonality is a bit looser, even coming at it from like a raw direction. I think raw production on like low fidelity or mid fidelity indie rock, having a little bit of tonality specifically in your vocalists isn't the end of the world. I'm fine with it. Not something I might always put on, but I could be in the mood for something like that. But in something like this, with really strong production and a showcasing of excellent harmonic writing and performance throughout an entire run of an album, it's really odd to me that they would choose occasionally to play around with microtonality like this. I think generally, though, in this case, it isn't quite as off-putting as something like the Mercury Tree, which we checked out earlier this week, and they go for a very sharp type of microtonal writing. This is a bit closer to what I expect, and like I mentioned last time, I can kind of tweak the sound in my brain a little bit to hear something closer to what I would expect these tones to be. Just kind of bring all of their pitches up just a little bit so that they're not flat anymore. But it's an interesting decision to want to do that in the first place. I don't know how to feel about it. I like this song, but I also don't want to hear this version of it again. I would really love a different version of it, but then it wouldn't be really in the tape deck by Angel Dust. If I tweaked everything to be consonantly in harmony, it's a totally different song. I think having a little bit of that tension in here creates a bit of extra darkness and anxiety to the song that isn't present with just the drearier chord progression. I think it does add an artistic element to it. Even if sonically, it's not a sound I appreciate. No, it's not a sound I enjoy. I still appreciate what it's doing artistically. I can't wait to get to the lyrics on this one, though, to see if there is this bittersweet element to it, where there is a beauty to the lyrics, but an anxiety or a stress about the situation. We do have a lot of callbacks on this, though. We have the ratchet, which I mentioned was one of the few instruments to get repeated. We had it in Brand New Soul and I believe Racecar. We have it here again, too. We also brought the whistling synth back from track 1. At that point, I was beginning to listen, see if any other instruments came back in, and I didn't catch any, but this is also a very dense song, which is where I was leading with all of this. There's a lot of layers here. That's honestly where a lot of the intonation stuff comes in, what makes it as stressful and anxious as it is. But it also works well. I wonder how many of these ideas come from other parts of the album. If any. It might just be those two instruments that they liked that really worked, and they're like, you know what, toss them in. But it is dense in a way that works for me, much like most of my other favorite songs on this album. It's the dense acoustic ones that I find I have the largest affinity for, and that continues to ring true here, despite the intonation and harmonic identity on this track. I do think it's interesting then if tracks 11 and 12 were rising intensity, massive speed careening towards a point, they basically slam on the brakes to wrap the album up. Kind of brings things down energy wise, but also this song feels more rooted. A couple of the other songs where we have layered acoustic stuff, we also have some sort of higher pitch instrument cutting through everything at the top. We don't really have that here. Everything is rather rooted. It's a very grounded finale to an extraordinarily wild and large album. So many influences and directions and sounds and styles, and it feels so small here at the end. I like that. A bit of a reminder, maybe, of what I don't know. To me, I kind of feel a smallness of scope, a reminder that not everything needs to be epic. Kind of lining up with the idea that if you can't get first, just have second. Let me read some lyrics on this one, and then we'll wrap this video up. As is tradition, not a lot of words here. We do have a verse and a chorus, and then a chorus and an interlude that uses part of the verse. We do kick it off with, "It's me, Steve," and I don't understand that. Someone explain that one to me. The verse says, "Oh my lucky stars, put me in the big seat of a fast car, driving fast as fuck. I don't know where I'm going, but I've got to go far. That's my favorite song in the tape deck. It's a deep cut. You don't know what? I don't know where I'm going, but I'm getting there fast." There are only 2 songs on this album with an explicit warning on them for language. Both of them use the word fuck. I wonder if there is a purpose to that, to basically go from nothing to extreme. I mean, we have seen him talk about fast cars, going fast. What was that, the very first track? I'm in a fast car and the house is burning down behind me. Wait, was that the first track? Because we could be coming full circle here. No, that wasn't the first track. It was one of the earlier ones, though. But yeah, he's talked about going fast in a car. But now, we've got to escalate it. We're going fast as fuck, man. What does this escalation mean? Why the choice now? At the end of the album? I pondered this moving into the chorus. Time to take me home. I'm your passenger. I don't know where you were, but I know it's time to take me home. A couple of songs ago, we explored the idea of people leaving. Him hoping they come back. Remember us here. Well, here we have somebody he used to know. He doesn't know where they were, but now he's in their car and they're being taken home. And their favorite song is in the tape deck. It's a deep cut. I have to wonder if this isn't about death and an acceptance of it. Going faster than he's ever gone before. He's going home. Maybe the grand concept of home. He's passenger in a car. The person who's driving he hasn't seen in a while. Doesn't even know where they were at one time. But he's going home with his favorite song, a deep cut that nobody ever plays on the radio. That's my best interpretation of this. Otherwise, it could just be the description of a good night. Maybe the guy went out and got hammered, and his buddy called him. He's like, hey, I'm back in town for the weekend. You want to do anything? He's like, yeah, I'm already out. I'm wasted. Come pick me up. We'll head back home and, I don't know, we'll watch a movie or play some games, pull out some board games. I don't know what people do. I'm nerdy. I know what I would invite them to do. And maybe he's still got a tape in his car from last time they hung out. And it's got that deep cut on it. Maybe that's it. It's just an innocent song about seeing a friend you ain't seen in a while, listening to some good music from your past to just a big old nostalgia trip. But maybe it isn't. Because we've been in cars that were driving fast before. But not this time. This time it's fast as fuck. And that makes me think it's different. It's more meaningful. It's maybe the supernatural type of speed. I don't know. A spiritual kind of speed. I can't pull this last piece together though, unfortunately. These are my thoughts. Angel Dust's brand new soul. I have a lot of questions coming out of this. I enjoyed it. I'm also kind of sad it's over already. Not that I think I necessarily want more music. They kind of lost their variety around track 8 or 9, which is quite impressive. But we hit a lot of the same beats in the back 25% of the album. Tape deck was probably a good way to wrap this up, as a little bit of some callbacks from previously and moving back into a style we hadn't heard in a while. The ultra layered, densely composed sections. But I am kind of sad it's over, and I don't know why. I've definitely had my fill of their sound, but I didn't want it to be over. Let me know how you felt about this. If you enjoyed this album, if there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you would like to correct me on, maybe you have your own interpretations or opinions on this, please let me know. Put all that down into the comment section, along with any other thoughts you might have or any answers you might have to any of the questions I posed today. I'm interested to seeing how other people interpret this album. I know I came at it from a very specific, very Bryan angle. And I could see there being other interpretations for this from other perspectives. Above the comments, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here, you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. No, I won't. That's a total lie. I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. UTC. We have a live stream. Sorry, I'm hitting this mic stand. We're going to check out 10 songs. There's good conversation. It doesn't always have to be on the music topic. It's like a hangout session while also discovering cool music. Like a bunch of people just hanging out and like, hey, let me play this song. Hey, let me play this song. It's real cool. Real chill. If you can make it, I highly suggest it. It is an awesome way to spend a couple of hours on a Sunday. Otherwise, though, Monday we'll be back. We'll continue on with the theme of bands getting new singers and exploring a song from two different vocalists within a single band. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.